So what I thought we would do today is what we usually do, except that you've never met Alek before.
No, this would be my first
And
time.
so I thought it might be a good idea for you to introduce yourself to Alek and Alek to introduce yourself to you.
Do that.
Yeah, I can start.
Yeah.
I'm a clinical psychology PhD student, and I've been working with Dr. Hurlburt for, this is my 4th year doing
I
this.
think.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
it is very cool.
I am a mother of 3 and a wife, and my husband finished law school, so I said, okay, it's time for me to go finish my undergrad in psychology. And I'm a little bit of an overachiever, and I'm minoring in neuroscience and biology, so I'm really slapping it on there.
Cool.
And my goal is to eventually go to a PhD, and whatever it is, I don't know yet.
Right on.
That is the goal.
Cool, good.
And Lena came because I think, you can tell me whether this is a correct version of what I remember the story. So I've met Lena one time, and which was last week now, and she came saying, I think, I'm paraphrasing what that story was like as I recall it, but something like she had been sort of interested in consciousness or whatever for a while, and then last week or 2 weeks ago, kerfuffle about the inner monologue thing that's been on the internet has sort of reawakened that interest, and there was a conversation in Dr. Heinz's class, and she talked to him, and he sent her to me. And my recollection is, and I would like you to correct me if I'm mistaken about this recollection, is that you have your characterization of your own inner experience is you have a lot of inner monologue.
That's how I perceive it, yeah.
And I don't really care whether she has a lot of inner monologue or not, but that's your self-characterization as I recall it. And one more thing that I don't know that I've told you. So we had a conversation of 45 minutes or an hour or something like that, and I forget exactly. But at the same time, and maybe for parallel reasons, Alek and I had a conversation of, well, it might be worthwhile to do these interviews, do a set of these interviews entirely transparently and put them up on YouTube and let everybody see exactly what it is that we do, because people want to know what we do and they don't understand what we do, and they think we brainwash people and whatever, and so we had to let people in on it. And I actually have done what I think is a pretty good job of that. I've got lots of quotations and books that I've written, and I run a website where there's a lot of video out there. So, but what there isn't is sort of a complete set from the very beginning to the very end of what might happen in this interview situation. And so Alek and I thought it would be a good idea to put something out there. And at the same time, you came into the picture, and so it seemed like, well, we should see whether that happens. So I suggested that to you. You thought about it for a while and decided that was sort of a good idea. And so that's how we have come here. And I would say beyond that, obviously you and I have had a relationship for 3 or 4 years, and you and I have had a relationship for an hour, and I haven't characterized all of those details, but basically that's the deal. We don't really know too much about each other, and other than what I've just said, or what we have just said.
Great.
So the rules of the engagement, from my point of view, are that we're going to videotape this, and we all have 51% of the vote in this. Usually I say that you have 51% of the vote, but in this particular situation, I think everybody should have 51% of the vote, in the sense that if we get into it, or for whatever reason, you push my buttons, I push her buttons, or whatever, we should be able to say that shouldn't be on YouTube for the rest of the existence of YouTube. And so we need to be careful about that in some way. But and we're always careful. Well, we always video, and so for the person in your chair always owns the video, in the sense that if you were to say something that, oh my God, I shouldn't have said that or whatever, we would erase the video or something with no questions asked. I mean, we want, you have something that we're interested in, namely your inner experience, and that is totally your property, private to you. There's no way that we ever can get access to that unless you tell us about it. And so we want to be very careful to make sure that you not only have control, but feel like you have control over the process.
And we really mean that. Like, we know for any participant, regardless of the situation, that you can't really know what you're going to be telling us about, because the very nature of what we do is just to kind of let it unfold.
Yeah.
And so we absolutely stand by that, erase it, get rid of it, whatever. That's not just lip service.
I feel very much inside that you guys are genuine, so
Cool.
I didn't question it too much. I mean, I did as you recommended. I spoke to family members, and I don't feel like I could say anything criminalizing. I don't have any inner weird crimes or secrets, so I feel open to the whole thing.
So the rules in general is that we're going to give you a beeper, and which you obviously know, but you're going to give you a beeper and it's going to beep, and we're going to ask you to tell us about what was in your experience at the microsecond just before that beep occurred.
Am I supposed to write it down when the beep occurs? Am I supposed to journal that?
Yes.
Exactly what I'm going through in that
We're going to
moment?
give you a notebook, which I haven't brought with me, and I hope we have one over here.
Well, I have like 100 notebooks.
So we're going
I
to.
could start there.
But yes, we want you to jot down notes about your experience. And the experience that we're interested in is actually like 1 microsecond just before the beep began. And it's not really a microsecond, but we want to know what we would sometimes call 1 microsecond before, or sometimes we call it the last undisturbed moment just before the beep occurs, and sometimes we call it the moment of the beep. What we're interested in is what Lena's experience is like if there were no beeper and there was no Russ and no Alec and whatever. And we want to know what you're like in the wild, so to speak, and as you go about doing your day, whatever it is that you do. We don't think that it's possible for you to retrospect about that and tell us what it was like yesterday or for your whole life, which is what most people ask about or whatever. But so we want to ask about a particular moment, and we would like to know that moment just before it's disturbed by anything. Now we know that's not possible because it is disturbed by something, and well, the beep is going to come and that's going to change your world before you report.
But you should be able to remember what you were experiencing the second before the thing went off.
Well,
right?
Maybe. So we don't even want to say that's really even true. We think it's true for most people most of the time, but maybe for you it's not going to be. Maybe the beep is not a good device for you. And if that's the case, we're happy to find out about that. And maybe that would be more interesting than just knowing about your experience. And why this process doesn't work for you is equally as important or interesting or valuable or whatever to us as, well, just telling us about your experience. But what we don't want is for you to make it up.
Right.
Because that's just a waste of time. We have a heavy duty investment in time. You have a heavy duty investment, we have a heavy duty investment. There's no sense doing it unless we're going to try to do it right. So we want you to tell us in technicolor, so to speak, about your experience that was going on right there just before the beep occurred. And if you can't do it, or you don't want to do it, or you ran out of time to do it, or whatever, then we should just say, I don't want to do that anymore. I want us to be here only if we all want to be here, all individually want to be here, and all want to be sort of dedicated to this task, which I think is an interesting task. I think finding out about your inner experience is about as interesting as the world gets, because you know, you're not me, and I'm not you, and you're not Alec, and we all get a chance to get a glimpse of somebody else's point of view, and that's a rare and beautiful and valuable and whatever thing, and we want to do it right. As right as we can, which is less than perfect, because the beep did disturb you, and then you do have to look back, and that is maybe going to screw something up or warp something or something, but it's as good as we know how to do, short of being able to reach inside and pull your experience out somewhere, which we don't know how to do.
Right.
But you control this whole process, and And so if we're gonna talk about a beep, we want you to be forthcoming about talking about that beep. Which means, if the beep occurs at a time when you don't wanna talk about, then you should say, I don't wanna talk about that. I've got things that are none of your business, I presume you've got things that are none of my business, and if a beep happens at that time, you should say, let's skip this beep, I don't wanna talk about that beep. But if you do agree to talk about a beep, then we should feel free to ask you anything about that beep. So that's the sort of the price of admission. If you're willing to talk about a beep, we should be able to ask you everything about it. And if you don't want to do it, then we shouldn't be able to ask you about it. So, and that's not an artificial rule. It's about, we want to be able to get what we think is a technicolor, or high fidelity is what we usually call it, a high fidelity view of your inner experience. And if you're holding back something, well, I don't want to talk about this aspect of my experience because it would whatever, then we're likely to just oscillate around trying to get at it, and you're going to hide, and we're going to try to get at it, and you're going to hide, and we don't know you're hiding, and you don't know what we're trying to get at, and we're just going to go around. So we would much rather have you say, it's none of your business, let's go on to the next beep.
Yep.
But all of that is part of the, what makes this interesting is that we would like to do whatever it is that we can do to get as high fidelity of you as we possibly can of your experience.
I see this as an opportunity to have a very meaningful experience in my own self. So I'm choosing to make this as honest as possible and as genuine. Because like I said to you when we first met, consciousness has always been something, whatever it is, I have thought about since as early as, I don't know, maybe 13 is when I started to really think about that kind of stuff. And it came at the expense of choking on a piece of bread. I thought I was going to die, but I'm here. So thank God. And just since then, I feel, and I could be totally wrong, but I feel like I have a lot going on in there. So this is a good opportunity for me to figure it all out. So that's how I'm looking at it. So I hope that in some way lets you guys know that I'm here genuinely and authentically. So.
Well, I think what you just said is more or less typical of what other people say in our studies. Some people come in and say, well, I'm here for the credit or whatever, and then they develop that kind of an interest over the course, because I think you will find that we're pretty good at asking questions, and you're going to be able to tell us about your experience, and that'll teach us how to ask better questions, and then you'll be able to get better answers. And that most people do, more or less as you just articulated, find that a valuable thing, because they learn something about themselves which they didn't know, or at least didn't know at that level of detail before. And most everybody finds that interesting. There are some exceptions to that, but I would say the modal response is that people find it interesting.
Definitely.
But we're not guaranteeing that, that will unfold as we go.
Well, I will appreciate this experience. Normally in social situations, I'm asking all the questions. I'm very curious by nature, so it would be nice to reverse that a little bit. Plus I have 3 kids, so it's always me trying to figure them out. So okay, now I get to come
put the spotlight back on you a little bit.
Well, we can. It'll still be sort of you asking the questions, because it's a joint effort. We would refer to you if we put you into a category as a co-investigator, because it requires this venture requires the 3 of us to be more or less, well, co-investigators. I was going to say equal, but it's not equal. We're not equal in this situation. You are in the situation of having access to the experience, which we don't have at all. So we're obviously not equal there. We have some skill and experience of how to ask these kinds of questions, probably better than you would do on your own. So we're not equal in that regard either. So what I think we can do is to band together and do something together that we couldn't, any one of us, do on our own. We couldn't do anything without you. You probably couldn't do it very well without us. And but together we can, I think,
happen.
maybe we can make it happen. Maybe not. It may very well occur that this process, for whatever reason, because we have a personality conflict, or because you freak out about something, or I freak out about something, or Alex says whatever, that this situation might not work.
Yeah.
And that's totally okay with us. So what we don't want to do is to pretend about something, because then we might as well just go on,
Yeah. Well, I still feel like I'm ready to go, and so as far as the beeper and the notepad and all that, you said it would be most beneficial to come back within a 24-hour period, so
Yes.
I could come back tomorrow morning to bring the beeper back if that, or not. What do you think?
So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna tell you today we're gonna tell you how to operate the beeper. And then we're gonna pick a day when we're going to meet again. And that's gonna be a negotiation as to when we're available and whatever. And then within the 24-hour periods back from that, then we'll want you to wear the beeper. And that may be tomorrow. Well, actually it's not gonna be tomorrow because I'm busy all day tomorrow, and then I'm out of town for the weekend or whatever. So it's gonna be next week. So we're gonna pick a day next week. Monday's a holiday, so maybe it's gonna be next Thursday or Tuesday or whenever we can decide. Maybe we should decide that now. When can we?
What days are generally good for you?
Um,
Because I'm guessing you're not on campus every day. Or maybe you
no,
are.
no, so obviously Monday, there's no
Yeah.
school, so that's done. I could come, Wednesday I have class, I could come Tuesday morning, I could come Thursday morning next week, and, also Fridays
Okay.
I'm usually pretty good.
I could do Thursday morning.
Next Thursday morning?
Yeah, I'm
Same
free
time?
between 8 and 10.
Okay, so do you wanna just stick with the 9:30 next Thursday?
We'll need an hour, right? Because this will be the
Oh, you're
first
gonna be
interview.
done- You need to be done by
Yes,
10?
we have-
Okay.
Somebody else coming at 10. So if you could do 9,
Yeah.
could you do 9 next Thursday? That's the 20th?
Yeah.
Okay, should we plan for that?
Thursday the 20th.
Okay.
So Thursday the 20th, we're gonna meet and we're gonna talk about the first batch of beeps. So
Okay.
what that means is that we would like you to wear the beeper on the 19th, sometime during the
Oh.
19th. We would like you to pick a 3 or 4 hour window where you can wear the beeper. And then we don't want you to do anything special in that. We would like you, I'm gonna put on the beeper and then I'm gonna do whatever it is that I'm gonna do in that situation, which is going to the grocery store or taking care of the kids or reading a book or watching TV or, you know, whatever it is that you were going to do. We don't want you to sit there waiting for the beep. Or we don't want you to say, well, I'm only gonna wear this beeper when I'm watching TV because that's the easiest time for me to wear it.
Right.
We want you to, we would like to catch Lena in her everyday
So I actually have a
situation.
question. So if we meet next Thursday to discuss the beeps, that means Wednesday I'll be in class. I don't want to disturb people with the beeps.
You won't because they're coming in through an earphone. You can be really discreet. We'll show
Okay.
you, like, you can
Alright.
put it in your pocket, string it up through
Alright.
your shirt. Nobody's even gonna know.
Okay, all right, I can do that.
So you won't have to worry about it.
Okay.
And it could be in
Any
class
sound.
and not in class.
Is there a
Mhm.
vibration setting by any chance? No, just the beep.
It's just gonna give you a beep.
Okay. Cool.
So there's all of these things are not accidental. So we're gonna ask you to use an earphone,
Okay.
which is gonna be this earphone. Well, this is the beeper.
Okay.
This is the way the beeper looks, and it's got a clip on it, and you can clip it to your, or put it in a pocket, or however you want to use it. And this is an old-fashioned earphone. You can use your own earbuds if you prefer. We don't really care what earphone you use. We do want you to use an earphone, and the reason for that is that we want to inject the beep, the sound of the beep, sort of as best we can, directly into your brain as fast as you can get there.
Cool.
And the beeper itself has will beep out loud through a speaker.
Mm-hmm.
So the beep sounds like that.
Like more of a siren.
Well, yeah, it won't sound like that. I shouldn't.
Yeah, that sort of has a slow rise, but when you
Oh.
actually get a beep, as we'll explain in a minute, it's going to be a much faster onset. It's going to pretty suddenly be there.
It'll sound like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like just.
Yeah.
Beep.
Okay, got it.
And that's intentional so that we can be very precise about the moment, because we don't want you to be wondering, like, at what point is that the beep? We want it to be very clear, that's the beep.
That's the sound. Got
When
it.
the deal is, when you turn on the beeper for the first time, there's a capacitor in there, and the capacitor has to charge itself up, and when it does that, the beep goes, wah, but,
Got it.
but after the beeper's on, then that doesn't happen, and the beep will have a really crisp.
Is there like a final beep that where I know that's the final beep, or do I keep track of the numbers of beeps so I know that I hit the 16?
6 beeps.
Six beeps.
We want you to get 6 beeps.
Okay, 6 beeps, okay.
And no, there's not a final beep. The machine itself decides when to beep. When you turn it on, it decides, well, I'm gonna beep 27 minutes from now or something like that. We don't decide. It's not a schedule that we make, and it's not a schedule that you make. The beeper itself decides when it's gonna beep. And it could be as much as an hour later, and it could be a minute later, or anywhere in between.
Okay, as long as I record 6 of my inner experiences to 6 of those beeps.
Yep, then
That's
you're
when
done.
you say it's
Then you're-
enough?
Yeah,
Then
then
you're
you
done
can
for the
turn
day.
it off.
Okay.
And there's nothing magic about
Yeah.
6. If you only get 5 and then something happens, well, I just can't deal with this or whatever, that's okay
Right,
too.
right.
The reason that we use 6 is only because usually in an hour we can talk about 6 beeps,
Okay.
and sometimes we don't get done with 6 beeps, in which case we'll talk about 4. And sometimes we'll be done with 6 beeps in 45 minutes, in which case then we'll be done in 45 minutes. But so 6 beeps is sort of the target.
Okay.
So you put the beeper on, you put the earphone in your ear, you do whatever it is that you're doing, and some number of minutes randomly chosen, the thing beeps. And your task is, yes, now I'm gonna answer the question from a bit ago, is jot down some notes about what's going on. And those notes we conceptualize as being from you to you. We're not gonna ask to see the notes probably. Every now and then we get into a conversation where we'd like to see what the notes are about, but mostly the notes are designed to be designed to help you to tell us about your experience at the moment. What we care about, and it's the only thing we care about, is what was in your experience 1 microsecond before this beep occurred. And we're gonna ask you some questions about it, and we want you to be in a position to answer those questions. Most people find it's a good idea to take notes. If you wanna dictate it into your phone, dictate it into your phone. If you wanna draw pictures on the wall and then take pictures of that, we'll do that too. Most people find jotting down notes to be the best way to do it. But that's not an essential feature. There's only one essential feature, and that is that we're interested in your experience, and we would like you to convey it to us in a way that we can understand it. We might have to work out how to do that, because it could be that maybe writing it down doesn't work for you, and you need to videotape something or whatever. We would be happy to do that. This is not about the method, it's about your experience. Some people find it useful to record because they feel that they can say more about their experience. Totally fine with us. Some people jot down 1 word and they say that's enough. A lot of the science of psychology is about the evaluating words or kind of counting features of the verbal description. We don't care about that. We want to know about your experience only, period. That's it. So you go about your everyday life, the thing beeps, your task is to freeze your experience, so to speak, to take whatever it is that you would call a mental snapshot of whatever was going on just before the beep.
Yes.
Turn the beeper off, stop the beep by pushing the button on the top of the beeper, and then jot down some notes about it, and then continue on doing whatever it is that you were doing. And then 2 minutes later, or 79, or not 79, but 59 minutes later, or whatever, the thing is going to beep again, and you do the same thing again. And that should be on the 19th.
Yes. So I'll hang on to the beeper until the next Wednesday, set myself up with the start of my day. I just turn it on and it knows to beep.
Yep.
Okay.
So it'll come on beeping. You're going to press the white button to quiet that, and then you're in business. It's on. It's not going to look like anything's happening, but you're going to wait for a beep.
Okay.
And then when a beep comes, you're going to use that white button again to turn it off. But we do generally recommend that the beep comes, you pay attention to your experience first, and then worry about turning it off.
Okay.
Right? If you're
Worry
kind
about
of
the beep last.
Yeah, if you're really focused on I got to find that button and turn it off, you might kind of
Miss
lose
the
the
moment.
experience. Yeah.
Got it.
But even that is up to you. We have a subject or two for whom that's not true.
Yep.
Who want to get their experience down while it's beeping because they feel like the act of turning it off disturbs something for them. Fine with us. We don't really care about the essential. I agree with Alec that most of the time, most people think it's a good idea to freeze the experience and turn it off and then jot.
Yeah.
I would say 99% of our people do it that way. But that's not an essential feature. We want you to do whatever it is that you have to do in order to grab your experience in a way that you can then talk to us about it on the 20th. 20th. So let me give a spiel about the beeper, and so that you can. This is what the way the beeper. This is the beeper, and so the beeper. You turn the beeper on by twisting this button there, and it'll. One way or the other.
Oh.
So it comes on beeping, and it'll beep more or less forever until you, through this speaker, until you stop it by pushing the white button.
Okay.
So now you have decided, or it has decided, when it's going to beep. And it might be a minute from now, and it might be 47 minutes from now, and it might be 29 minutes from now. At some random time, it's going to beep again.
Okay.
So your task is to put on an earphone. You're going to be a left ear person or a right ear person. I don't really care.
Probably a right ear.
So this is going to go in your right ear. This is going to be like this.
Okay.
And you're going to put that in your right ear after we. This new batch of earphones has a longer set of cords than we really need, but that's what we got. So you're going to put that in your ear. And we're going to plug this into like that, pretty natural. And then if you push the white button down and hold it down, keep holding it down. It's making a square beep, beep. The object of that is for you to make sure that it's on. That's what it's doing.
It's
if
checking
you can
to
get
make sure.
Yes,
Okay.
and you can adjust the volume.
Okay.
So if you're in a quiet place, you don't want the beep. You don't want the beep to be so loud that it startles you, and yet you don't want the beep to be too soft. So is that the beep? Is that the beep? Is that the beep? Oh yeah, that's the beep. Well, because then you've lost
Yeah,
what the.
now you're too
what the-
focused on the beat.
So whenever you want to, you can push that button and hold it down, and adjust the volume. This is a volume control.
Got it. Perfect.
And the beeper has one, has several, but there's a flaw in the way the beeper is constructed, and that is that when you're playing around with this wheel, you can trigger it to beep. And if that happens, so if you're playing around with this thing and it beeps, just forget about that beep.
Ignore that beep, okay.
What happens is that the wheel has an on-off switch in it as well as the volume control, and if you wiggle the wheel just right, it thinks that you've turned it off and then back on again, and then it comes on beeping.
Got it. Cool. So, do I have to charge this thing, or
No.
okay? So it should be totally good to go
It should
on
be,
Wednesday.
it should be good.
So for now, I'll just turn
So
it
now
off.
you can turn it off,
Oh, we're still on.
and then go the other way.
We're still
There you
on. Now we're off.
go. Okay. Now I'm gonna take this back because I want to show you one more feature of the
Yes.
beeper in a little bit. So I'm going to turn it on,
All right.
and it's beeping.
Oh, okay. It's giving me that long beep that it did.
Right.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to set this aside because I want you to know about one more feature of the beeper, and that is
Okay.
the beeper is going to beep for a long time, but like a couple of minutes, and then to save its battery, it's going to stop beeping. And I want you to know what happens when it stops beeping. It goes into what we call the chirp mode, and I want you to hear it chirp, so that then sometime when you hear that chirp, you can know this is
It's activating.
yeah.
Okay. Once after it's done chirping, then it goes silent, and then that's when the stuff happens.
Well, what'll happen is that so it's beeping. Right now it's
Yeah.
beeping. We can't hear it. Or maybe
Sort of,
we can-
kind of.
Yeah, it's beeping, and in a minute or so, it's going to stop beeping and go into chirp. It's going to go chirp, and then it's going to wait for 30 seconds, and then it's going to go chirp, and then it's going to wait for 30 seconds, go chirp again, and it's doing that to save its battery. And so what that means is when you hear that little chirp, what that means is it's beeped. I forgot or didn't notice or whatever to turn the, to push the white button.
Oh, okay. To set.
And what you do in that situation is to turn it off and turn it back on again. Or turn it off and then turn it on when you're ready to do it. So.
Okay.
But you don't want to respond to a chirp as if that were the beep.
Right.
Okay, now it's going to.
I heard the chirp. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a higher.
So this
pitch
may
sound.
not happen to you, but sometimes people do get confused and they'll come in and say something like, those beeps were coming really fast, like
Yeah.
30 seconds
Yeah.
after the other, and we'll realize that
Yeah,
they had
they were
forgotten to
chirps.
turn it off, and those were actually chirps. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
So I've taken the earphone out now, so that,
Okay.
so that the thing is now chirping through the speaker.
Okay. Oh yeah.
And when you hear
That's not a
that,
beep.
you're
That's
different
that's
than
a
a beep.
that's a chirp,
Yeah.
not a beep.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
So when you hear that, you turn it off,
Okay.
and then you turn it back on, and it comes on beeping just like it always does, and you push the white button like you
To
always
set it
do, and then you're
for the
back in.
All right.
So the chirp is just battery saving.
Okay.
So
Alright.
these are yours
Cool.
for the duration. And so you're gonna keep the beeper until we're done.
With the
So-
With the whole thing, yeah.
with the
How
whole-
many sessions do you think? You said typically between 5 and 6 or so.
I think that's in the
Yeah,
ballpark.
that's what I was thinking.
We don't,
I have no like limitation, so
We do always keep that a very organic, like we return to that often.
Yeah.
You know, if people want to keep going, we
Yeah.
have a discussion about that. If they want to stop early, we have a discussion about that. We sort of kind of prescribe like we're aiming for this many, but I don't think we're ever rigid about that.
okay.
it depends, you know, if on the fourth day you're saying, you know, maybe all your beeps are exactly the same. I'm talking to myself, and then the second beep I'm talking to myself, just like I was in the first beep, and then the third beep is I'm talking to myself, just like I was on the second beep and the first beep. Well, there's no reason to do that for 6 days, you know, if that's the way it is.
Question. So I write down what's happening inside of me. I tell you that.
Mhm.
And what are you searching for exactly? You're just searching to understand what it's like to be me? Is there something specific in what I'm doing that you're looking for to document? Like what exactly is the thing that you're looking for in my experience?
It's pretty close to, we want to know what it's like for you to be you,
Mhm.
but slightly less than that.
Okay.
Because we don't feel like we can get to the essential Lena. That's not
Yeah.
our goal.
Yeah.
Our goal is to find out what it's like for Lena to experience her experience the way Lena's experience is. That's the goal. And there's nothing more nor less to it than that.
Okay.
We would, if we could get inside and experience your experiences, we would do it. We don't know how to do that, and so we have to have you tell us about that.
Okay.
So, but there's no hidden agenda, there's no theory, there's no, we're not looking for anything, except that we are looking for whatever it is that's there, and we want to see that and experience that. What the word we use is apprehend that. We would like to apprehend that in as high fidelity as we can get.
So when you do this experiment to hundreds of people, are you guys able to draw similar conclusions between people's experiences? Are you able to say, oh, even though everybody has a different perception of the world and reality and what they are experiencing, is there something in that makes it not the same, I should say, but in some way connects the human experience?
Yes.
That you could draw into the whole consciousness thing?
That's a great question.
We think that is a good question. We
Yeah.
think the answer to that is yes.
Okay.
And we would probably rather tell you more detail about that answer after a bit.
Okay.
And the reason for that is, we don't really want to pollute the pond or
Sure,
poison
yeah, I
the
get
well or
that.
whatever that experience.
I was just trying to explain to my brother, who
Yeah.
also is a consciousness enthusiast,
Uh-huh.
what this was. I was like, I don't know how to describe what they're looking for, because I didn't really ask.
Yeah.
I knew generally,
Yeah.
a little bit, but.
Well, we very often get two groups of people, one group
Yeah.
with a particular external characteristic and another group who doesn't have that characteristic. And then we sample these guys and we try to figure out whether there's a difference between those two groups.
Okay.
And those kinds of experiments are important, but they're secondarily important to whether you can describe experience at all. There's a lot of science, a lot of psychological or behavioral science that says, well, we just can't do what it is that we do. And so we spend a fair amount of our time trying to make the case that it is possible to do this, so that then if you really wanted to know the difference between this group and that group, then you could use a method like this or better that to explore those differences. So our interests, we are entirely interested in whether there's a difference between this group and that group, but we think that the science needs to work out how you find out about those differences. Like, as it is right now, the way those studies almost always work at questionnaires, we give a set of questionnaires to this group and a same set of questionnaires to that group, and then say, well, these people responded to those questionnaires different from these people. We don't think people know what they're doing when they talk about questionnaires, and therefore we don't think we know that the scientists know what they're doing when they spot a difference between them.
Okay.
Or maybe they do, and that would be fine too. But it seems to us that if you are interested in experience, this is sort of the best that we know how to do. If we could, if maybe in the course of doing this, you'll come up with a new idea and you'll say, you guys shouldn't be using a beeper, you should be whatever. For example, you said a little bit ago you should be using a vibrator. And the vibration isn't good enough. I've built vibration devices before there were vibration devices and tried them, and they're not good enough because they have a slow rise time.
Yeah.
Is that the vibration? Is that the vibration? Yeah, that's the vibration. Well, it's too late by then. So the beep is the best that we've been able to figure out, but we're not proposing that as the ultimate way of investigating experience either. It's the best that we've been able to do, but maybe you'll have a better idea. And we would be open to that. Which leads me to say a few more things about the question. So you're gonna jot down some stuff, and we're gonna get together and we're gonna talk about it. And we're gonna ask a question which is always gonna be exactly the same question, which is basically, what's in your experience, if anything, at the moment of the beep? And then you're gonna tell us some stuff, and we're gonna try to figure out what you mean. But the question is always the same question. What was in your experience, if anything, at the moment of the beep? That's what we're interested in. And you're not, if you're like almost all people, you're not going to be very good at answering that question on the first day. And you're going to tell us about things which are not really experience, and things that are not really at the moment of the beep, and whatever. That's the way it is. And then we're going to ask you some questions, and it's going to occur to you probably, well, I wasn't paying attention adequately to answer that kind of question. And then the second day, maybe you're going to be better at it than you were the first day. Or maybe not. Well, that would be fine too. But the process depends on our making a sort of a good faith attempt on the first day with the recognition that you're not going to be very good at answering the questions, and we're probably not going to be very good at asking the right kinds of questions for you to answer. So then we're going to get better at that maybe, so that the second day you'll have paid better attention to your experience, and you'll be more prepared to answer the questions, and we will have heard the kinds of responses you give and know more about how to ask, and we'll be better at it the second day. And then the third day is probably going to be better than the second day. So there's something that is inherently frustrating about the process. We don't want to tell you how to do it, because to tell you how to do it would be to tell you what to look for, and we don't want you to look for anything
particular.
That's right. We don't have a favorite kind of experience. And so we have to, what we would call sort of wade into the water, and there's going to be some, well, geez, if I had known you were going to ask that question, then I would have paid better attention to it. And that's not a personal failing of yours, and it's not a personal failing of ours. It's the way the process has to work if you want to get at a high fidelity view of experience.
Do you notice that in doing this, I mean, I don't know if this is going to pollute the pond, as you said, so you don't have to answer the question if that's the case, but do you notice that in doing this with some people, some are more hyper aware of their experience that's happening inside of them versus maybe some who are more passive in their experiences, in their awareness?
I would say some people seem to be better at it than others. But I would also say that is not necessarily, that the confidence going in is not a good predictor of that. So a lot of people think they know exactly what their experience is, and they're quite mistaken by their own lights. After have a half a dozen days of sampling, they came in and they said, well, I thought I was an X, but it turns out that's not true. And other people said, I thought I was X, and then that's the way I was. Either one of those is fine. We're not trying to disprove something or prove something. We're trying to get at it.
do you think awareness of our experience is part of, I don't know if this question is going to make sense, but our awareness of our inner experience has something to do or relates to consciousness as we're trying to figure out? Like, maybe, I'm not saying that the more aware you are of your inner experience means you're more conscious, therefore you're more tapped into whatever secret juice there is out in the world, but is there, I guess that's a hard question for me to answer. I just answered it myself.
So the word consciousness is a very problematic
Right. How do
word.
you define it and measure it?
And so I don't consider myself a consciousness scientist. Quite a few people consider me a consciousness scientist.
Yeah.
I don't really care whether I'm considered or not a consciousness scientist. It seems to me and to us, I believe, that what we do ought to be a major feature of what a consciousness scientist would be interested in. And maybe they would also be interested in some other stuff too, which would be fine. But it would seem that consciousness science ought to start, or at least be fueled in some fundamentally important way, by what's actually going on in people's direct experience. So we're trying to get that right, and then we'll let the consciousness scientists or the neuroscientists or whomever do that. But use that stuff. But it turns out it's enough of a challenge to try to get that right that we haven't spent much time in consciousness theorizing.
Okay.
Which is not to say that consciousness science isn't important. That's not the point. The point is, I would say that we think that many people, many consciousness scientists have mistaken impressions about what's going on in people's actual everyday in the wild experience. And that would seem to us to be a problem for some consciousness theory.
According to Dr. Hines, he says he feels or believes that if there's anyone closest to the idea of consciousness would be you. So I thought that was a nice thing to say and interesting too.
That is a nice thing to say. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And whether that's true or not, I don't know. I don't actually know the answer to that.
Yeah.
And I don't too much care about the answer to that. I've been doing this for 50 years now or something, and I'm totally interested in what your experience is going to be. Like, it's going to be, well, unless tomorrow is different from the last many days, it's going to be totally fascinating to me to find out about your inner experience, and that, to my way of thinking, is sort of enough.
Yeah.
And that won't mean that your experience is necessarily spectacular,
Right.
but it will be sort of personally Lena's, and that's
The unique aspect of it.
Yeah. It's as good as it gets, I think.
Well, cool. I'm very excited.
So do you have any other questions? Let me see whether we have a notebook of the kind that we have thought are good.
Yeah, I would check in there too.
I'm like a notebook fanatic. So
Yeah,
I'm like
when you said I have
100.
100 notebooks, I was like, girl,
Yeah.
I relate.
Yes, Target is not my friend, especially the notebook aisle.
That aisle is so good.
And it's getting better in time.
It's just getting better and better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know,
I
they're
am
really
so
grabbing
with
on
you.
those
Uh-huh.
consumer suicide.
Yes.
You know?
They sure.
Yeah.
I'm a
So
victim.
you plan on doing clinical psychology?
Mhm.
Is this the kind of field you want to get into, or?
I would love to do this forever, and you can only really do it here.
Oh, really?
Like, he's the guy for this.
Wow.
So I don't know what I'll do, but it
I might
informs
need
a
a
lot.
bigger book, so if I don't use this, I'll bring it back.
We'll take no offense, but
Yes.
it's handy in that
It
it's
is.
really easy to carry around with the
Yeah.
beeper.
More
Yeah.
or less the same size as the beeper.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's no rule that says you have to use that.
Yes.
If you would prefer to use 8.5 by 11 notebook and carry that around with you, it's fine with us.
Okay.
And we're now probably never even going to look at that, and you get to keep
Yeah.
that as a souvenir or whatever. But
Right.
whatever it takes for you to capture your experience in a way to answer the detailed questions, because we're going to ask detailed questions.
Okay.
And if that requires you writing 1,000 words, I guess you have to write 1,000 words. If it requires you writing one word, then one word is good enough. And we don't expect you to know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have to do it more than once.
Do you guys, I mean, you said this is kind of like what you guys do, this is the bread and butter right here. Do you participate in like neural feedback type stuff to analyze moods in relation to an experience, or is that too difficult? What do you guys think about
Well,
that
he's been
field?
part of some work in that kind of domain.
We've done some stuff. It's
Yeah.
sort of hard to do. What in the state of the scientific world, there is a underappreciation, I think is fair to say, an underappreciation for what experience is like as it actually occurs for people.
Right.
And that, I guess, has been my goal for however many decades that I've been doing this kind of thing, is to try to
Make it
elevate that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else has questions that are, well, what's the difference between this group and that group? And, can you correlate this with mood or something like that? And those are important questions, but they're secondary to getting the experience right in the first place, it seems to me.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's too difficult to take a person's inner experience and relate it to specific moods or types of behavior? Like if I write in the journal, oh, I was experiencing anxiety and this is why.
Mm-hmm.
And do you say that the inner experience is due to the mood, or is it the mood that, or you know what I'm trying to say here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, those are great questions.
Yes.
And what we're going to try to do is to separate out what your opinion is about why things happen. You say I was anxious, and the reason I was anxious was whatever.
Yeah.
We're going to try to keep that separate. So we're going to try to get the experience of it,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have some opinion about why that is the case, and those opinions might be true and might not be true, but that's not our primary interest.
Got it.
If we were interested particularly in mood, whatever, then we would probably try to get you good at at grasping, or what we call apprehending, your experience as it happens. So 4 or 5 days of sampling like this, and then we might send you out and okay, now let's chart mood at the same time.
Yeah.
But you got to go through the sort of 4 or 5 days worth of let's get good at grasping experience, because otherwise what happens is you have a theory about what the effect of your mood is, and that's your folk theory about it, and it might be 100% true or 0% true or anywhere in between, but unless we tear those things apart, all the sampling is going to do is to reify that theory, because you're going to tell us, well, I was in this mood, and this is why I was in this mood, and I was in that mood, and this is why I was in that mood.
You can't argue it.
You can't argue it, can't do anything about it.
So how do you separate out a person's perception of their experience versus the reality of their experience? Is that just...
We're going to find out whether we can do that, whether
Oh,
you
okay,
can,
so that's
whether
the point
you can
of
do
this.
that. That's the
Oh.
point of it, and maybe
All right,
It's
and,
the art of it for sure.
Okay.
and maybe you can't. In
Right.
which case, that's fine. We would like to know about that. I would say most people find that they can do that,
Okay.
but that might be because most people aren't like you, and your uniqueness might be, well, it's not possible for me to separate out my experience from my theory of my experience,
Right.
or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And we would find that interesting as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys record your inner experiences and like kind of do this to yourself?
We both have
Or to
done a
each
bunch of
other, or-
this.
Oh, okay, okay.
I'm sure you've done way more than I have. But
Yeah.
I've done like 37 days of
This to
like
yourself?
what you're going to do.
Oh, okay, cool.
In 1976, I wore the beeper
Oh.
from when I got up in the morning till when I got going to bed at night for a year.
Oh, wow.
And that was when I was trying to figure out how to do this, how to do this stuff.
Mm.
It seemed like it was important. You should know this kind of stuff, but what to do about it wasn't clear.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process of doing that, I decided two things. One is it was interesting, and I should do it.
Mhm.
And second, I shouldn't ever again do it on myself,
Mm.
because I shouldn't have a favorite experience that I would then impose on you. I don't want to. I have to figure out. I thought in 1976 that how to ask you about your experience without infecting that with my own experience.
Mm.
And so I've worked pretty hard at not wearing the beeper again. One time a few years ago, the students, you might have been here for that or not, maybe it was before you twisted my arm and said, you know, you really do have to wear the beeper again, and I did for a day. But that's the exception that proves the rule. It's our job to keep us out of your experience.
Yes.
As hard as you should try to keep yourself in your experience, we got to work at keeping ourselves out. And the other thing is that we're going to teach you how to attend to your experience and keep out all your own theories and whatever about your experience, which are interesting and maybe right, but not part of your experience. So we're going to try to keep that separate.
Okay.
But we would rather have that sort of unfold across the day, across sampling, rather than us tell you, well, you got to do this and this and this and this and this, because maybe those things don't have anything to do with your experience.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We would rather have you make a mistake, so to speak, and confuse your experience and your theory about it your way, and then for us to have a conversation and say, well, this seems to be experience and that's not. And you might say, well, that's exactly my experience, and then we'd have to revise our questioning, or you might say, well, you're right, that was a theory and this is my experience. And then we would gradually, over the course of time, get better at you keeping your experience separate from your theory and us keeping our questions better. And
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel more well informed.
Cool.
Yes. Cool.
cool. But I would also say, my guess is that at the end of the first day, you're going to say, well, I wasn't very informed.
Mm.
And that's the way it always is. It's not a failing of yours, nor a failing of ours. It is actually a fundamental characteristic of the process. And
Yeah.
All right. Well, I have no theories. I'll just, I'm here for the experience.
Awesome.
all right. So we have decided next
Next
Thursday at 9
9
o'clock.
9 a.m.
Yep.
And if that changes for whatever reason,
I'll reach out.
everything is up for grabs here, except
Mhm.
the attempt to get at your experience. We don't care about whatever it is that we do. If we have to stand our head in a corner to get to talk to you, then that's what we're going to be doing. And that includes when we're going to meet again or whatever, except that that we are interested in the high fidelity view of your experience and try to figure out how to do it.
Okay. Cool. All right, well, I'm gonna put it in my calendar next Thursday at 9 o'clock. I'll put the speaker on. I drop my kids off at 8 o'clock, so I figure the best thing to do is to wait till I park and then put this on so I don't have to write my experience as I'm driving. So
I think that's fine.
Yeah.
And it
Plan.
doesn't have to be necessarily at the very beginning of the day, if you would
Yeah.
prefer to do it in the afternoon.
okay.
or
Just any
whatever.
kind of 3-hour chunk that
Okay.
feels like you could.
Okay.
And the only reason that we ask for a 3-hour chunk is that we want to get about 6 beeps. The beeps
Okay.
on average should be about a half an hour apart,
Okay.
but it could be that your beeper will decide to make those closer together or farther apart, so it might take 4 hours, it might take 2 hours.
Okay.
And if for whatever reason you get 3 beeps, say, and then something happens where I just can't deal with the beeper, my kid is screaming and pulling on my beeper or whatever, and then stop it and start over again. You know, there's nothing magic about
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
We think it's better to do it
Solid.
sort of all in one shot, because if you do it, if the alternative extreme would be to get one beep and then turn it off and then come back, well, I'll get another beep and I'll turn it on and get another beep. That sort of maximizes the intrusion of the beeper.
The waiting for a beep
We-
feeling.
We want you to not have to worry about the beeper at all, but most people take a while to adjust to that.
Okay.
And you can, by the way, if you want to wear the beeper for a day between now and then, just to get practice at wearing the beeper and how to deal with the mechanics, that's fine with us too. And I would also say that Alec alluded to, but a lot of people find it's convenient to wear the wire from the beeper
Under the
inside your
shirt.
shirt,
Yeah.
because the collar will keep the wire
Stable.
stable.
Yeah, it keeps it, like, it won't snag on stuff, and it makes it easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Whatever, however you want.
however you want to do it, it's really up
I will make it
really up to you.
very fashionably.
Yeah,
And-
it's gonna look good.
Working good, work the wire, work the
And,
beep.
and the beepers are pretty indestructible, except they don't like water, so
Right.
no showers.
I won't wear it in the shower.
Swimming or whatever. But other than that, if you
Okay.
want to run or whatever,
Mhm.
that'll be fine.
Yeah.
The earphones, on the other hand,
Mhm.
are fairly breakable.
Delicate.
And if an earphone breaks, then we'll give you another earphone, so, or wear your iPod in earphone or whatever.
Okay.
If you do wear your own earphones, those
Yeah.
earphones are probably stereo, so they're only gonna beep in one of them,
Oh, okay.
so.
I'm just gonna stick to the protocol and do it solid to what you've given me and make it as
Great.
close to what you guys need it to be, so you can not have too many flaws in this experiment.
Sounds good. And we will send you
Yeah.
a reminder the day before, that's part of our
Perfect.
protocol.
Yeah.
And,
Should I give
I'll
you
probably
my
give
number?
you, yeah,
Okay.
we'll exchange numbers and I'll,
Okay.
take care of all that scheduling stuff.
Okay, because yeah, email sometimes, I
Yeah,
might not
it's
get
easier to
always-
just be able to shoot a text if you're late or whatever.
Yep.
And if you have questions,
Mhm.
so it's next Tuesday or Wednesday or whenever it is that you're gonna wear the beeper,
Mhm.
and you have a question, you should call me or call Alek
Mhm.
or whatever, you
Yeah.
know how to find us.
Whatever.
And this is where we'll meet next.
This is-
Awesome.
Yep.
This is the room.
It'll
This is
be
it.
just like this, yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Cool.
Oh, and one other thing, so what I'm intending later on today to make a video of what we've done here and post it to a private YouTube
Oh,
account.
send me the link.
And I'll send you the link, and I'll send you the link,
Yeah.
and you should look at it,
Okay.
and then I haven't yet decided whether I should make this link public. So let's say you look at it and say, oh, that's
Yeah.
fine, and this is what happened, and it's okay
Yeah.
with me. The question is whether we should hold all these things until the end, or whether we should let the.
Roll 'em out,
Roll
kind of
them
thing.
out one a week.
Yeah.
Maybe after each session, I could, we
Yeah.
can jointly decide, oh, okay, I feel good that we
Yeah.
can put that out there in the world.
Well, that would be the minimum. That
Okay.
Right,
would
we'll
be the-
definitely do that.
Okay.
For sure we will do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Or we can start the whole thing private, and then after the whole thing is closed and done, I can say, I
Right.
feel really great about the experiment, share it with the world,
Yeah.
and then you guys can make that decision on yourselves as well. I mean, I can go either way.
Yeah, it's.
Just, do you want to look at the whole thing as a whole, or do you want to look at each session as a piece? Like,
The advantages and the disadvantages here. The advantages of waiting until the end is that gives that makes the privacy issue prominent.
Mhm.
It means that we're not gonna turn your inner experience loose into the world until we're sure of what the end
Right.
of this process is.
yeah.
That's a sort of a vital thing for us.
Mhm.
The countervailing thing is that we would like the process to be recognized as being an honest, transparent, this is what happened
Right.
process.
Mhm.
And that would say, well, we should have already made this, this should have been a live broadcast or something like that.
I hear you.
And I don't know exactly how to balance that.
Well, if we upload it after the whole process, the
Mhm.
tapes itself will be honest. You can't like go back in the tape and edit my words or anything.
I could.
You could.
That's the problem.
Oh, you think
Yeah.
other people might say,
Right.
oh,
Yeah,
who
they might
staged
wonder.
it, or,
Yeah.
oh, I hear where you're coming from. Right.
But
Well, I'll let you decide as the lead. Because I've already condoned to knowing, and if I say something in the moment, I can say, oh, I don't really want that out there, then you'll
Yeah.
choose to delete that for me, because we agreed, whatever. But I don't
Mhm.
personally feel any hesitancy in terms of sharing this experience, sharing what I go through in my day,
Mhm.
or whatever. So, maybe that's
Well,
something.
there might be a we should talk
Yeah,
about this.
we'll
We should
talk about it more, but we'll definitely share today's thing,
Yeah.
With you.
right, and get
We'll start
everybody
with the private link.
on board, yeah.
Okay.
We'll never, even if we decide we're rolling them out, we
Mhm.
won't roll one out if after
Yeah.
it, you or I or whoever says,
Yeah.
didn't like that one, it won't
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Rolling it out would be, we'll roll it out to you first.
Yes.
Okay.
And when you say it's okay, then we'll
Yeah.
Okay.
make the link public.
So
Okay.
yeah, let's just start with today's and figure that
Alright.
out.
And maybe
And maybe that
there's-
could be the thing, like you send it to me, roll it out as you say, I say
Mhm.
yes, and you say, okay, boom, publish. And we
Yeah.
can do that each time after every encounter, if
I,
that,
I'm, right now, a compromise is appealing to me, and
Yeah.
that is that I'll send this link to you later on today, hopefully, and we won't make it public. And then we'll do the first sampling there, maybe even the first 2 sampling days.
Yeah, I like
And
that.
so after you have a chance to see what this process is like, 'cause
Yeah.
so far we've told you about it, but you haven't done it,
Yes.
then we can decide whether to
I like that.
roll it out. That
Yeah.
seems like sort of a
meet in the middle.
Yeah.
compromise of.
Yeah.
Gives you a chance to actually say, I'm good with this,
Yeah,
you know, having a little taste of what this is.
okay. All right, I
But
like
we,
that.
we have said, and I think we're right about that people don't know the characteristics of their own inner experience. And if you
Yeah.
take that seriously, we shouldn't be asking you to consent to something that,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Might
that
not
you
know
don't,
anything
that you don't
about
know
it.
anything about.
Yeah,
Yep.
And,
okay.
so let's have that as a sort of a plan A,
Yeah.
and then we can.
Detail
we
it
can
later
Yep.
figure out
and
something.
go on.
Cool.
All right, so cool,
Yeah.
I'll get a link
And,
today or
and
tomorrow.
one last thing, so
Yes.
we've agreed to do this,
Yeah.
but you should feel free to say, I'm changing my mind, I don't wanna do it anymore,
Mhm.
for whatever reason, without prejudice.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know, you don't need to explain the reason, you can explain it if you wanna explain it or whatever, but
Mhm.
you should be able to, and we too, but we should be able to say, for whatever reason, I don't think I wanna do this anymore. That's it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Awesome.
That's good.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
Nice.
Thank
All right,
you
I'll
very
get your
much.
numbers.
Yes,
and
yeah, let's
we'll
do that.
confirm all that.
Let's do
Actually,
that.
thanks for your time again.
My
This is
pleasure,
exciting.
so looking forward to it.
Yes.